The most difficult thing about mixing epoxy is the ratio. 2 parts epoxy to 1 part hardener. If you don't get it right, it leaves a sticky film and will not cure properly. The best solution I found is to use a measuring cup that measures out by the dram. A dram is 1/8 of an ounce, allows you to get some very precise measurements, and you need to mix it thoroughly, usually about 1 minute in this small of a batch of a size. The smaller the batch, the more precise the measurement. Always add a little Xylene. This thins it out. This way I won't have to use as much epoxy. It conserves things and allows the epoxy to fully wet out the threads, every little crack and crevice of the wood, and bond the cork firmly to the stem. How do I do my paints? You know, you saw I have an airbrush. I use an airbrush. Now look, if you're making these yourself, just get some spray paint or something and be done with it. But for me, I use the Iwata or Revolution. This airbrush is used a lot in making custom crankbaits. Have you seen those really awesome looking crankbaits? Okay, yeah, Iwata Revolution, CRRB, CR. Paint goes in here, hold it like that, you know, pull it back, dual action. I use the Creatix brand paints. I like them the best. What I've decided to do, I've tried these fluorescent paints for a year and I don't like it. The quality of the paint is good, but the finish I'm looking for is a almost candy cane, candy-like finish on the float, okay? Now the way I have done it this past year was I'd put 2 coats of opaque white as the base and then top it off with 2 coats of the fluorescent paint. But I'm getting low and I'm deciding on what direction do I want to go in with the paints, and I said, well, I've got all these other paints here. I've got a whole rack of iridescent paints, and I remembered, wait a minute, those iridescent paints gave me that candy cane like finish. Basically on this latest batch, put a black base coat on there, 2 coats, then put this hot pink on top of it. That's a big mistake, right? You never put a dark base with a light paint. It'll look gross. And I said, I cannot ship this out to my customers. It looks so ugly. So I said, well, wait a minute. Got these iridescents, and so I got a cayenne. This is a cayenne, or actually a magenta sort of iridescent, and I just put it on there and it was like, oh, you know, and that's gonna give me the look that I had when I first started making these. You see the one picture, you know, where it was sort of green and red and it looked like Christmas candy cane colored, you know, and that is the look I want. I'm probably only gonna be using maybe an orange color. All right, so varnishing. Why you want to varnish? You got to protect from the sun, right? The sun is this dangerous, raging ball of fusing hydrogen that spews out all kinds of dangerous things like UV rays that like kill everything it touches. And the only reason we're not dead is because the Earth has this like big electromagnetic sort of field that protects us. It's like a big shield like you see on these big starships in all these like sci-fi movies. Some of those rays still get through, and this is how people get skin cancer, things like that. If I just ship these things with the paint on them and the epoxy like you saw me do, the sun would just eat it up, turn it yellow, and it would just be gross. For the past year I've been using this stuff. Minwax's spar urethane varnish. I don't even know why they call it varnish. It's just urethane, all right? Spar urethane. Pretty good. The good thing I like about it is it dries in about a couple of hours. You can sand it between coats in a couple of hours. I always put 2 coats of this stuff on. Protects it from the UV rays. It dries crystal clear. The good thing is it doesn't have much of an odor to it, so I can use it indoors. Acrylic, it's water-based. What I don't like about it, it just doesn't seem to be as waterproof. And because it dries crystal clear, you lose some of that vintage look that I'm trying to go for on the floats. This is what I use. Minwax spar urethane, or spar, it's a spar varnish. But this is not acrylic, it's oil-based, petroleum-based, so it stinks to high heavens. And you have to either do it outside or open the windows. Make sure it says spar on it, because that spar is what protects it from the UV rays. You see that sort of amber color to it? That's the color you'll get. So it'll tint the float slightly. It'll give it a honey maple syrupy sort of finish to it. Those of you who've been watching the channel for a while, you know I'm in the process of building a boat. True Marine Spar Varnish. And I found this brand at RAKA called Last and Last. They use this stuff on sailboats. And these sailboat guys sail around the world on it. But this 1 gallon cost me like $50, I think. Very cheap when it comes to true marine spar varnish. If you have any kind of spar varnish around your shop, just use it and it'll be perfectly fine. So let's head on over to the bench and let me show you exactly how I apply it. Get you some gloves, man. Just go to Sam's. You can get these nitrile gloves. They're the best ones, right? Especially if you're allergic to what is that, latex. You can get this one. We'll lay down some wax paper. This is actually parchment paper, but you know, you just get some cheap wax paper. Just buy it from the dollar store, man. I do this free-handed. I used to do it with a brush. I find that the freehand is better. And you can do it this way. You know, you take it and you dip the end in and you just sort of coat it with your hands like this. This is so much faster than with a brush. This gets real sticky and tacky with traditional varnish, but it's actually a lot simpler to do with the spar varnish, with the water-based varnish. The paint just simply needs to be dry enough not to rub off. That's how I do that.
If you want to know more about these floats, check them out on the website, blackwarriorlures.com. I got a special, 24 floats for $32, includes shipping. And if you want to know more about how these floats are made, click the subscribe button and then click the little bell by it so you'll be notified, because I plan on doing several more videos in this little bit. All right, see ya.